My name is Corporal Dane Harrick, 2nd Platoon, Kerados Prime Defense Force. This is my testimony, my confession. The last record of what happened when the tombs opened. We thought we were guarding a mining colony on a dead world. 50 million tons of ore extracted yearly, 40,000 workers, 3 guard companies to keep order. The pyramids had been there for millennia. Ancient Xenos ruins, we'd been told, inert and harmless. Command said scholars had surveyed them decades ago, found nothing. We believed them. Emperor forgive us, we believed. Lieutenant Caney ran morning briefing like he always did, half asleep, reciting the same patrol routes we'd walked for 2 years. My squad mates were good people, Sergeant Voss, who'd served 30 years and could strip a lasgun blindfolded. Troopers, Mikkel and Sarah, who'd been arguing about ecclesiarchy doctrine since basic training. Private Chen, always first to volunteer, last to complain. We were garrison troops, not warriors. Our biggest threat was boredom and the occasional smuggler. That morning was our last normal day. We just didn't know it yet. Kerados Prime was ugly but honest. A desert world where humans had carved meaning from dust. Refineries, hab blocks, the governor's spire rising like a middle finger to the barren sky. The pyramids stood beyond the perimeter, black stone that absorbed light and gave nothing back. Sometimes you'd catch miners staring at them, uneasy. But minerals don't care about superstition, and the ore veins ran deep. We protected the workers. They fed the Imperium's war machine. Simple, clean. Purpose without glory. That was enough. The first anomaly registered at 0923 hours. Seismic activity near Pyramid Complex 7. The tech priests were puzzled. No mining scheduled in that sector. No tectonic explanation for the readings, just vibrations rhythmic and deep, like something breathing underground. Magos Vane suggested equipment malfunction. Caney ordered a patrol to investigate standard procedure. Voss took 3rd Squad. Chen begged to go. Kid was always eager. I stayed at the command post monitoring Vox channels. Heard Voss report arrival at 10:15. Heard him go silent at 10:17. Never heard him again. We sent a recovery team. Found their Chimera transport abandoned. Engines still running, weapons untouched. No bodies, no blood. Just boot prints leading toward the pyramid, then stopping abruptly as if the men had simply ceased to exist. The pyramid was unchanged. Same black stone, same geometric perfection that had stood for millennia. But something felt wrong. The air tasted like metal and ozone. The silence was absolute, not peaceful, hungry. Caney ordered immediate withdrawal. We pulled back to the colony perimeter. That's when the ground began to shake. The tombs opened. Not with violence, but with purpose. Geometric precision as ancient mechanisms engaged after eons of sleep. The pyramids weren't ruins. They were doors. Emerald light spilled from widening cracks, cold and alien, a color that hurt to see. The ground split in perfect lines, revealing chambers that descended into impossible depths. And from those depths came something worse than sound. A silence that pressed against your skull. An absence of life so profound it felt like drowning in vacuum. The Necrons were waking. I saw the first one through magnoculars. A skeleton of living metal, 10 feet tall, moving with the patience of something that had outlived stars. Its eyes, if you could call them that, burned with green fire. It carried a weapon that looked grown rather than forged, organic and terrible. It didn't rush, didn't search for targets, simply walked, each step measured, as if it had all the time in the universe. Because it did. We were mayflies to it, temporary, irrelevant. That's what terrified me most. Not malice, but indifference. Caney ordered full mobilization. Every guardsman to the walls, civilians to shelters, Vox calls for orbital support that would take days to arrive. We had 3 companies, 900 soldiers, against an enemy we didn't understand. The tech priests were frantic, accessing data archives, finding fragments of lore Necrons, ancient race, deathless machines, tomb worlds. The words meant nothing to us. We were trained to fight rebels and orcs, not immortal machines that had been old when humanity was young, but we were Guard. We'd hold because that's what we did. They came in formation. Perfect lines, perfect spacing, moving as one entity with 100 bodies. No war cries, no battle rage, just patient, inevitable advance. We opened fire at extreme range. Every laser gun, every heavy weapon, pouring fire into them. I watched last bolts strike metal bodies. Watched them punch through, watched the Necrons continue walking. Wounds glowing briefly before sealing shut with liquid metal flows. Self-repairing, unkillable. They raised their weapons, the Gauss fire began. Private Chen died first. The Gauss beam touched him and he came apart. Not burned, not exploded, unmade. Flesh stripped to bone, bone stripped to atoms, atoms scattered on the wind. He didn't scream, didn't have time. One moment a man, next moment dust glowing green. Trooper Sarah saw it, started laughing, that high, broken sound people make when their mind rejects what their eyes show them. Mikhail grabbed her, pulled her down. The Gauss fire swept over our position. 6 more guardsmen ceased to exist, just gone, like they'd never been. We fell back, not routed. Voss wouldn't allow that, but retreating in bounds, each squad covering the next. The Necrons followed at the same measured pace, never faster, never slower, like they knew we couldn't escape. So why hurry? Our heavy weapons made some difference. Missile launchers could destroy their bodies completely, stop the repair protocols. But we had dozens of missiles against hundreds of Necrons. The math was brutal. For everyone we put down, 3 more rose from the tombs. An army that had slept beneath our feet, waiting. We fortified the colony perimeter, turned mining equipment into makeshift barriers, positioned every weapon we had, prepared for siege. The civilians were terrified. 40,000 people who'd come here for work, not war. Governor Marek gave speeches about faith and duty, empty words. But people need empty words sometimes, need to believe they matter. The Necrons didn't care about speeches. They surrounded us in a perfect circle, equidistant at every point, then stopped, just stood there waiting. The silence was worse than battle. Night fell. The Necrons remained motionless, glowing eyes creating a ring of green stars around our position. Some guardsmen tried to sleep, couldn't. How do you rest knowing immortal machines are watching, patient, willing to wait decades for your defenses to crumble? Mikhail asked the question we all thought. Why don't they attack? Voss had no answer, neither did Caney. We learned later from Magos Vane's research. They were waiting for their full legion to wake, gathering strength. Making our desperation worse, psychological warfare from machines without psychology. Magos Vane worked through the night, accessing every data archive, every fragment of lore about the Necrons. What he found was worse than ignorance. They were the Necrontyr once, mortal beings who'd bargained with star gods for immortality and received damnation instead. Souls stripped away, consciousness imprisoned in living metal, enslaved to sleep for millions of years, now waking with one purpose: reclaim their galaxy, wipe away the younger races like insects. We weren't enemies to them. We were vermin infesting their property, and vermin get exterminated. Dawn revealed our doom. The Necron ring had tripled overnight. Thousands of warriors, their metal bodies reflecting the weak sun. And worse, larger machines emerging from the tombs. Constructs that defied description, combining insect and arachnid and nightmare into metal forms that shouldn't exist. Voss stared through the scope of his sniper rifle, put it down slowly. "We're not holding this," he said quietly. Caney wanted to argue, couldn't. The orbital support wouldn't arrive for 3 days. We had maybe 3 hours. They sent their elite first. Lich Guard, warrior nobles encased in armor that predated human civilization. Each carried weapons that hummed with phase technology. Able to pass through matter and cleave at the molecular level, they walked to our gates. Didn't knock, didn't demand surrender. Simply raised their weapons and began cutting through the reinforced plasteel like it was paper. Our defenses meant nothing. Our walls were children's toys. The assault began not with a charge but with a dismantling, taking us apart piece by piece. We met them at the breach, flesh against metal, faith against ancient technology. It was slaughter. A Lich Guard cut through 3 guardsmen with one swing. War scythe phasing through armor, through bone, through anything material. Plasma weapons could hurt them, I learned. Watched a gunner put a plasma bolt through one's chest, melting the internal mechanisms before it could repair small victories. Meaningless victories. For every Lich Guard we destroyed, a dozen warriors advanced behind them. The tide was inevitable as gravity. Sarah died fighting. She'd stopped laughing hours ago, found something harder inside herself. Stood her ground at the inner barricade, firing until her lasgun cell ran dry, then drew her combat knife, useless as it was, and charged a Necron warrior. It looked at her with those burning eyes, perhaps curious, perhaps nothing. The Gorse flare ended her. Mikkel screamed her name. Tried to reach her dissolving body, Voss pulled him back. "She's gone," he said. "Don't waste her sacrifice." Cold words, true words. All we had left was truth. The civilians broke, can't blame them. 40,000 people trying to flee an enemy they couldn't comprehend. The evacuation plan dissolved into stampede, families trampled, children lost. Governor Marek tried to restore order, was ignored. The Necrons didn't pursue the civilians aggressively. Why would they? Where could humans run on a world the Necrons owned? We tried to cover the retreat, bought them minutes with our lives. Some made it to the underground shelters, most didn't. I stopped counting the dead. Numbers became meaningless. Their leader emerged. Overlord, Vane called it. A Necron noble, once a king of the Necrontyr. It stood 15 feet tall, armor inscribed with hieroglyphs that hurt to read. In one hand it carried a staff that crackled with green lightning. Its eyes burned brighter than the others, and when it spoke, throne it spoke. The words bypassed my ears and echoed inside my skull. This world is ours. Your presence is theft. The sentence is erasure. Not anger, not hatred. Statement of fact. We were being evicted from property we'd never owned. We made our stand in the central square. 200 guardsmen from 3 companies, all that remained. Lieutenant Caney was dead. Captain Oris was dead. Command structure had dissolved. Voss took charge because someone had to. We formed a defensive circle. Every weapon pointed outward. The Necrons surrounded us, didn't attack, just watched. The Overlord stood at the perimeter, raised its staff. For a moment, I thought it would give us a soldier's death. Quick, clean. That wasn't their way. They came from all sides simultaneously. Perfect coordination. Every warrior moving in sync. We fired until our weapons overheated, threw grenades until our arms were empty. fought with entrenching tools and desperate hands. Mikhail fell beside me, gasping, taking his arm at the shoulder. He stared at the cauterized stump in shock. A Necron warrior walked past him toward another target. He wasn't even worth finishing. I dragged him behind a makeshift barrier, pressed a medikit into his remaining hand. "Hold pressure," I said stupid advice. We were all dead, just taking different amounts of time to finish dying. Voss died like he'd lived, standing, fighting, refusing to yield. 4 Necrons converged on him. He shot 2 at point-blank range, damaged a 3rd with his combat knife. Futile gesture of defiance. Before they cut him down, I watched him fall. Watched the only father figure I'd known since enlisting collapse into ash. He didn't cry out, didn't curse, just fell, and the universe was smaller for his absence. Mikhail was sobbing. I wasn't, couldn't. Something had shut down inside me. Survival instinct, maybe, or just acceptance. Someone shouted about the shelters, deep underground, reinforced, maybe offering hours instead of minutes. We ran, not all of us. Someone had to hold. Dozen volunteers bought us time. I heard them die over the Vox, their screams cut off one by one as gas fire found them. We got maybe 200 civilians and 20 guardsmen into the shelter, sealed the blast doors. 3 meters of rockcrete and plasteel between us and them. For a moment we breathed, then we heard it. That rhythmic sound from above, cutting, precise, patient. They were coming through. The shelter was designed for temporary refuge during sandstorms, not warfare. Certainly not siege by immortal machines. The civilians prayed, some to the Emperor, some to saints I'd never heard of. Some just whimpered names of loved ones already dead. The children were worst. Too young to understand, old enough to know fear, Mikhail held his stump, fading from blood loss despite the medikit. Looked at me with eyes that were already somewhere else. "Tell them we tried," he said. "Tell them we stood." I promised. He died believing I would survive to keep that promise. I believed it too then. The doors glowed, heat so intense we fell back from radiation. They weren't forcing entry. They were dismantling the doors, molecule by molecule, perfect circle carved through plasteel. The opening appeared, rim glowing white hot, edges perfectly smooth, and Necron warriors stepped through like they were entering a room they owned. Because they did. This was their tomb world. We were the invaders. I raised my laser gun, empty cell. I'd forgotten to reload. Didn't matter. A Necron looked at me, raised its weapon. I closed my eyes. I don't know why I'm alive. The Gauss beam passed over my head, targeting someone behind me, and in the chaos I fell through a maintenance hatch, tumbled down a shaft, landed hard, pain exploding through my ribs. Above me, the shelter died, screams, Gauss fire, then silence. I waited in that shaft for hours, days. Time stopped meaning anything. The Necrons walked past my hiding place a dozen times, never looked down. Maybe they'd killed enough. Maybe they simply missed me. I don't believe in the Emperor's miracles, but I survived, alone. When I emerged, Karados Prime was silent. The colony was ruins, not destroyed through rage, but dismantled, methodical, efficient. The Necrons had taken it apart piece by piece, removing all traces of human habitation. The pyramids stood unchanged. The tombs were open. Warriors stood at regular intervals like statues, waiting for orders or simply existing. I walked through what had been our command post, found bodies, those the Necrons had left, already desiccating in the desert heat. Voss, Chensera, all of them. Just meat now. meaning fled with their souls. I scavenged, found a working Vox unit, fresh cells for my laser gun, water packs from the dead. Became something less than human, something that existed purely to survive one more hour. The Necrons ignored me. One walked past close enough to touch, didn't turn its head. I wasn't a threat, wasn't even interesting. Just leftover vermin they'd missed during extermination. That hurt worse than death would have. At least death has dignity. I was beneath their notice. Irrelevant. Nothing. I hid for 5 days, stayed in the ruins, moved only at night, avoided the Necron patrols that walked their perfect routes. They were reorganizing, reestablishing control. This wasn't invasion. It was reclamation. On the 6th day, I heard engines, human engines, Imperial engines. The orbital support had arrived, 3 troop ships and a cruiser. I wanted to feel hope. Couldn't. I'd seen what was waiting for them. Knew they'd land troops, establish perimeters, think they could retake this world. They'd learn. Everyone learns eventually. The galaxy belongs to the Necrons. We just haven't finished being evicted yet. I signaled them. Used the salvaged Vox to broadcast on Imperial frequencies. Warned them about the Necrons. Told them about the tombs, the weapons, the futility. The commander, Colonel Brest, thanked me for the intelligence. Said his regiment would secure the colony. I laughed. Actually laughed. He thought I was suffering battlefield trauma. Maybe I was. You can't secure anything, I told him. This world belongs to them. It always has. We were just too ignorant to know. He ordered me to report for debriefing. I complied. What else could I do? They didn't believe me. Not really. Acknowledged Xenos' presence. Understood casualties had been severe. But couldn't accept what I was saying. That we couldn't win. Humans don't surrender planets without a fight. The Imperium doesn't retreat because ancient machines wake up. Brest had 3,000 soldiers, armor support, artillery. He'd retake the colony, re-establish the perimeter, wait for reinforcements to purge the Xenos threat. I nodded, agreed. Let them have their confidence. They'd learn. I had. Soon, they would too. The offensive began at dawn. 3,000 guardsmen advancing in textbook formation, supported by Lehman Russ tanks and Chimera transports. It was beautiful. Proper Imperial warfare. Discipline, faith, determination. They reached the colony perimeter without resistance. Brest thought he'd surprise the enemy. I knew better. The Necrons were letting them advance, drawing them in. When the guard reached the central square, the tombs opened again. Not hundreds of warriors, thousands. The pyramids themselves began to move, ancient constructs activating, weapons systems that predated human civilization coming online. The massacre began. I watched from the perimeter, saw Lehman Russ tanks unmade by gas cannons that fired at the speed of thought, saw entire platoons dissolved in sweeping fire, saw commanders trying to organize retreats that became routes. The Necrons didn't charge, didn't need to. They advanced at that same measured pace, weapons firing with mechanical precision. Every shot found a target. Every target ceased to exist. The battle lasted 30 minutes. The Guard lost 2/3 of their strength. Brest ordered full withdrawal to the landing zone. The ships lifted off within the hour. Kerados Prime was abandoned, given to the machines. I made it on the last ship, climbed aboard with other survivors, maybe 200 from the original garrison, and Brest's regiment combined. We lifted off under fire, Gauss beams reaching for us like green fingers. One dropship took a direct hit, detonated before clearing atmosphere. We made orbit, docked with the cruiser. As we left system, I watched Kerados Prime through a viewport. looked peaceful from orbit. Desert world, ancient pyramids, no sign of the millions who died there. The Necrons would sleep again eventually. Wait for the next wave of humans to stumble onto their world. The cycle would repeat. Colonel Bress filed his report. Xenos encounter. Heavy casualties. Tactical withdrawal. Recommended orbital bombardment to deny the world to the enemy Inquisition would review. Administratum would assess strategic value. Eventually, someone would make a decision. Maybe they'd glass the planet. Maybe they'd send a Space Marine chapter. Maybe they'd do nothing. Kerados Prime would be marked as a tomb world on Imperial charts. Other colonies would be warned. Some would listen. Most wouldn't. Humanity spreads across the galaxy like weeds, taking root wherever we can. Sometimes we grow on graves we don't recognize. The Inquisition questioned me. 3 days of debriefing in a windowless room aboard an orbital station. They wanted details, numbers, tactical assessments, weaknesses we'd observed. I told them everything. The self-repairing warriors, the phase weapons, the cold patience, the Overlord's words echoing in my skull. They recorded it all, expressionless. When I finished, the Inquisitor, name redacted from my memory, looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. "You understand you can never speak of this," he said. I understood. Some truths are too dangerous for common knowledge. They gave me a choice. Penal Legion or Remembrance Servitor. Turn my memories into data for Imperial archives. I chose neither. Requested transfer to a frontline regiment active combat zone. The Inquisitor was surprised. "Most survivors want peace," he said. I shook my head. "Peace is a lie. There's only war, at least on the front lines. The enemy dies when you kill it." He approved my transfer, sent me to a war zone on the eastern fringe, fighting orcs enemies that bled and broke and stayed dead. It felt honest, clean, human, even in its brutality. I'm recording this from Forge World Metallica, between deployments. My new regiment doesn't know about Kerados Prime. I don't tell them, but I see it in my sleep. Those green eyes, that patient advance, that cold certainty of being irrelevant. Sometimes I wake thinking I hear that silence pressing against my skull. "The Emperor protects," my squad mates say. I nod. Don't contradict them. They need that faith. But I know different now. The Emperor protects what he can. The rest of us protect ourselves, or we die. That's the only truth that matters. This is Corporal Dane Harrick, 2nd Platoon, formerly of the Kerados Prime Defense Force. I'm recording this because someone should know what really happened. Not the sanitized reports, not the tactical assessments, the truth. We weren't heroes, weren't even soldiers at the end. Just humans who learned we're living in a galaxy that belongs to something older. The Necrons were here first. They'll be here last. We're temporary, brief, a moment of noise between eternities of silence. But we were there, we stood, we fought, we mattered, even if only to ourselves. Voss, Chen, Sarah, Mikhail, all of them. I carry their names. Someone has to. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war.